The morning Caleb Turner bought the 6 rusted tractors, the entire town of Red Creek got something to laugh about. The machines sat in a forgotten corner of an abandoned equipment yard, half swallowed by weeds and years of neglect. Their paint had peeled away long ago, their tires were cracked, and 2 of them didn't even have complete engines. To most people, they looked like scrap metal waiting for the crusher. But Caleb wasn't most people. At 38 years old, he was a widowed father raising 2 children alone. After losing his wife Emma 3 years earlier, life had hit him hard. Medical bills had drained their savings. The family farm his grandfather left him was drowning in debt. Every month felt like a battle against foreclosure notices and unpaid invoices. Yet when Caleb looked at those tractors, he didn't see rust. He saw possibility. Standing beside him at the auction, a group of local farmers watched with amusement as he placed the winning bid. The laughter started quietly, then spread through the crowd. 6 broken tractors? What's he planning to do, build a museum? One man joked. Another shook his head and said, "That farm won't survive another year." Caleb heard every word. He simply signed the paperwork, climbed into his aging pickup truck and drove home. His 12-year-old son Noah and 10-year-old daughter Lily were waiting on the porch when he arrived. When they saw the tractors being unloaded onto the property, their eyes widened. "Dad, do they even work?" Noah asked. Caleb smiled. "Not yet." Lily tilted her head. "Then why buy them?" Caleb looked across the hundreds of neglected acres surrounding their farmhouse. The fields were uneven, irrigation systems were outdated, and much of the land sat unused. Most people saw failure. Caleb saw a blank canvas. "Because," he said, "sometimes the things everyone gives up on become the most valuable." That evening, after the children went to bed, Caleb walked alone through the dark fields. The wind carried the scent of dry soil and distant rain. He remembered standing there years earlier with Emma, dreaming about turning the farm into something extraordinary. Back then they had plans. Then tragedy changed everything. As he stared into the darkness, he made a silent promise. He wasn't buying tractors. He was buying one final chance to build the future they had imagined. And no matter how many people laughed, he wasn't going to quit. The next morning began before sunrise. While most of Red Creek was still asleep, Caleb Turner stood in the middle of his farm, with a flashlight in one hand and a notebook in the other. The 6 rusted tractors sat in a row like forgotten relics from another era. Their metal frames groaned in the cold wind, and patches of rust covered nearly every visible surface. To anyone passing by, they looked worthless. But Caleb wasn't studying what they were. He was studying what they could become. For the next several weeks, his routine became relentless. He woke at 4 every morning, prepared breakfast for Noah and Lily, helped them get ready for school, and then spent every spare minute working on the tractors. Money was so tight that hiring mechanics wasn't an option. Instead, he spent nights reading repair manuals, watching old instructional videos, and learning everything he could about agricultural machinery. Some evenings he worked until midnight, under portable lights, his hands stained with grease and his back aching from exhaustion. The townspeople noticed. Every day someone drove by and saw him lying beneath a tractor or hauling parts across the yard. And every day the jokes continued. "Still fixing junk?" One farmer called from his truck. "You'd make more money selling those for scrap," another laughed. "He's turning into the county's biggest collector of rust." Caleb never responded. He simply kept working. One Saturday afternoon, Noah walked into the workshop carrying a toolbox nearly half his size. The 12-year-old set it down beside his father and rolled up his sleeves. "What are you doing?" Caleb asked. "I'm helping." Caleb smiled. "You know nothing about tractors." Noah grinned. "Then I guess today is a good day to learn." From that moment on, the project became a family mission. Lily helped organize parts, clean tools, and kept records of repairs. Noah learned how to rebuild engines, replace hydraulic lines, and diagnose mechanical problems. Every small victory felt enormous. The day the first tractor's engine finally started after years of silence, the sound echoed across the property like a declaration of war against failure itself. The children cheered. Caleb laughed harder than he had in years. But while progress was happening in the workshop, trouble was growing elsewhere. One evening, a letter arrived from the bank. Caleb opened it slowly at the kitchen table, while Noah and Lily finished their homework nearby. His face tightened as he read the contents. The farm's loan payments were months behind schedule. Unless a substantial payment was made soon, foreclosure proceedings could begin. The room fell silent. Noah looked up. "Dad?" Caleb folded the letter. "It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. After the children went to bed, he sat alone on the porch, staring at the dark fields, stretching toward the horizon. The numbers didn't lie. Even if every repaired tractor worked perfectly, it wouldn't solve the farm's financial crisis. He needed something bigger, something no one else had thought of. His eyes drifted toward the northern section of the property, a massive area of land that had remained unused for nearly 20 years. Most farmers ignored it because the terrain was rough and difficult to manage with conventional equipment. Suddenly, an idea began forming. It wasn't just about fixing tractors. It was about transforming the entire farm. Over the next few days, Caleb researched advanced farming methods, soil optimization, precision agriculture, and crop diversification. The more he learned, the more convinced he became that everyone around him was farming the same way they had for decades. They were producing the same crops, using the same methods, and accepting the same profits. Caleb planned to do something completely different. Something risky. Something ambitious. Something that could either save the farm or destroy it forever. Late one night, standing beside the first fully repaired tractor, he looked across the property and imagined thousands of acres operating with military precision, guided by technology, efficiency, and innovation. For the first time in years, he could see the future. And if his vision worked, the people laughing today would someday drive past a farm unlike anything they had ever seen. A farm worth far more than anyone could imagine. A farm that would eventually be valued at over $100 million. But first, Caleb would have to survive the greatest gamble of his life. The idea refused to leave Caleb's mind. For days, he carried it everywhere, through the fields, into the workshop, and even to the dinner table. The more he studied the numbers, the more convinced he became that traditional farming alone would never save the Turner farm. The profits were too small, the risks too high, and the competition too fierce. If he wanted to survive, he couldn't think like everyone else. He had to think bigger. One cold morning, Caleb climbed onto the hill overlooking the northern section of his property. The land stretched for hundreds of acres. Most of it was uneven, rocky, and considered nearly useless by local standards. Farmers had ignored it for years because large machinery struggled to operate there efficiently. But as Caleb stood there, he saw something different. He saw opportunity. The 6 tractors suddenly made sense. Each one could be modified for a specific purpose. Instead of buying expensive modern equipment worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, he could rebuild and customize the old machines himself. The cost would be a fraction of the price. That afternoon, he began sketching plans. One tractor would be rebuilt for soil preparation. Another would be converted for precision planting. A third would be modified for irrigation support. The remaining tractors would handle harvesting, transport, and maintenance. It was an ambitious plan, one that would require months of work and money he barely had. But Caleb wasn't interested in easy. That evening, he attended a local agricultural meeting in town. Farmers gathered inside the community hall to discuss crop prices, weather forecasts, and equipment costs. When Caleb shared his vision, the room erupted with laughter. "You think 6 junk tractors are going to build a farming empire?" A farmer near the front shook his head. "You're dreaming." Another laughed. "No bank will finance that." A third added, "You should sell the land before you lose everything." The comments continued. Some were mocking, others were pitying, but all of them carried the same message. They believed Caleb had already failed. As he drove home that night, the words echoed in his mind. For a moment, doubt crept in. What if they were right? What if he was risking the future of his children on an impossible dream? The headlights illuminated the long dirt road leading to the farmhouse. When he arrived, he found Noah and Lily sitting on the porch waiting for him. They could tell something was wrong. "Bad meeting?" Noah asked. Caleb nodded. "They think I'm crazy." Lily smiled. Most people thought the Wright brothers were crazy too. Caleb chuckled. "Where did you hear that?" "I looked it up." For the first time all day he laughed. Then Noah said something Caleb would never forget. If everyone agrees something can't be done, maybe that's exactly why someone should try. The words hit harder than either child realized. because deep down, Caleb knew they were true. The next morning he made a decision. He would stop trying to convince people. Instead, he would let results speak for themselves. Over the following months, the farm transformed into a giant construction zone. The old tractors were stripped down to their frames. Engines were rebuilt. Hydraulic systems were replaced. Custom attachments were fabricated inside the workshop. Every dollar Caleb earned went back into the project. He sold unnecessary equipment, worked side jobs, skipped vacations, cut expenses to the bone. Progress was slow, but it was real. Then something unexpected happened. A video of Caleb working on the tractors appeared online. Someone had filmed him repairing one of the machines and posted it with a sarcastic caption, "Local farmer thinks 6 rusted tractors will save his farm." The video spread quickly. Thousands watched. Most laughed. Many mocked him. But among the viewers was someone Caleb had never met. Someone hundreds of miles away. Someone with experience in agricultural technology and investment. And after watching the video, that person became curious. Very curious. Because while everyone else saw 6 rusted tractors, he saw the beginning of something revolutionary, and within weeks, that stranger would arrive at the Turner farm, carrying an opportunity that could change everything. 3 weeks. After the video went viral, Caleb Turner was repairing the transmission of the 4th tractor when a black SUV rolled slowly up the dirt road leading to the farmhouse. Vehicles like that rarely appeared in Red Creek. Most people drove pickup trucks, old sedans, or farm equipment. This SUV looked completely out of place. Caleb wiped the grease from his hands and watched as a tall man stepped out wearing jeans, work boots, and a simple jacket. He wasn't dressed like a businessman, but there was something about him that immediately caught Caleb's attention. The man walked over and extended his hand. "Caleb Turner? That's me." The stranger smiled. "My name is Victor Hayes." Caleb didn't recognize the name. Victor looked toward the line of rusted tractors. "So those are the famous tractors?" Caleb laughed. "I guess they are." For the next hour, Victor followed him around the property asking questions. Not casual questions. Detailed questions. Questions about crop yields. Questions about irrigation systems. Questions about machinery modifications. Questions about future expansion plans. The deeper the conversation went, the more surprised Caleb became. Unlike everyone else, Victor wasn't laughing. He was listening, carefully. Finally, they stopped near the northern fields. Victor looked across the massive area of unused land. "What do you really want to build here?" Caleb hesitated. Most people mocked his vision, but something told him this man was different. So he told him everything. The custom tractor system, the precision farming model, irrigation network, the long-term expansion strategy, the plan to transform every acre into a highly efficient agricultural operation. Victor listened without interrupting. When Caleb finished, silence filled the air. Then Victor smiled. "You know what's interesting?" "What?" "Everyone online was making fun of your tractors." Caleb nodded. Victor pointed toward the fields. They were looking at the equipment. Then he pointed at Caleb. "I was looking at the person rebuilding it." Caleb didn't know what to say. Victor continued. "For 20 years I've invested in agricultural businesses." Caleb's eyes widened. Victor wasn't just another visitor. He was one of the largest agricultural investors in the region. "I've reviewed hundreds of projects," Victor said. "Most people ask for money before they do any work." He looked at the tractors. "You rebuilt half a farm before asking anyone for help." The words hit Caleb harder than he expected, because for years nobody had believed in him. Nobody. Not the bank, not the town, not even many of his friends. Victor reached into his truck and pulled out a folder. Inside were maps, financial projections, development plans, professional reports. Caleb stared in disbelief. "What is all this?" Victor smiled. "The future." Over the next 2 hours, he explained an opportunity unlike anything Caleb had imagined. Several food processing companies were searching for large-scale agricultural suppliers capable of producing specialty crops. Demand was rising rapidly. Profits were enormous. But very few farms had enough land to meet the requirements. Caleb did. Victor believed the Turner farm could become one of the largest suppliers in the state. The proposal was risky. Extremely risky. It would require expansion, new infrastructure, advanced technology, and years of hard work. Failure could cost everything. Success could create a fortune. As the sun began setting, Victor finally asked the question, "Are you willing to bet on yourself?" Caleb looked across the fields. He remembered Emma, he remembered the debt, the foreclosure notices, the laughter, the sleepless nights, the people who said he'd fail. Then he looked at Noah and Lily standing near the workshop, watching from a distance. Everything he was doing was for them. Every sacrifice, every dream. Caleb slowly nodded yes. Victor extended his hand. Good, they shook. And in that moment, neither man realized they had just started a journey that would completely transform Red Creek. Over the next few years, those 6 rusted tractors would become legendary. The abandoned land would become one of the most productive farming operations in the country. Investors would arrive from everywhere. Reporters would tell the story. Business schools would study it. And the same people who once laughed would eventually stop their trucks along the highway just to stare at the incredible empire rising from the fields. An empire valued at more than $100 million. But before that happened, Caleb would face obstacles far greater than rusted tractors. Because success attracts attention, and attention attracts enemies. Somewhere in Red Creek, powerful people were already noticing what was happening, and not everyone wanted Caleb Turner to succeed. The transformation of Turner Farm began quietly. There were no headlines, no television crews, no grand announcements. Just a single father waking up before dawn every morning and working until long after sunset. Yet within a year of Victor Hayes' visit, the farm looked completely different. The 6 rusted tractors that had once been the town's favorite joke were now the backbone of an operation unlike anything Red Creek had ever seen. Every machine had a purpose. Every field had a plan. Every acre was being used. What had once been abandoned land was now alive with activity. Rows of specialty crops stretched toward the horizon. New irrigation systems carried water with incredible efficiency. Storage facilities were under construction, and most importantly, contracts were beginning to arrive. Large food companies wanted products that local farmers couldn't supply consistently. Caleb could. For the first time in years, money was flowing into the farm instead of out of it. The bank stopped sending foreclosure warnings. Suppliers started treating him differently. Even some of the farmers who had mocked him now watched from a distance with growing curiosity. But success has a strange way of creating enemies, especially when it arrives faster than expected. One afternoon, Victor Hayes arrived unexpectedly. The moment Caleb saw his expression, he knew something was wrong. Victor wasn't smiling. They walked toward the barn away from workers and children. "What happened?" Caleb asked. Victor handed him a folder. Inside were documents, reports, financial statements, land records. Caleb flipped through them, confused. Then he saw a familiar name, Richard Holloway. Caleb's stomach tightened. Richard owned the largest farming corporation in the county. For decades, Holloway Agricultural Group controlled most of the local market. Thousands of acres, millions in annual revenue. Political connections, influence everywhere. Richard Holloway wasn't just a farmer. He was an empire. And according to Victor's information, Richard had started paying close attention to Turner Farm. "Why?" Caleb asked. Victor looked across the fields. "Because you're becoming competition." Caleb laughed. "Competition? Compared to Holloway?" Victor didn't laugh. "You're growing faster than any operation in the region." The seriousness in his voice erased Caleb's smile. Victor continued, "Holloway believes you're disrupting the market. What does that mean?" "It means he doesn't like surprises." A chill ran through Caleb. The truth was simple. For years, Richard Holloway had enjoyed being the dominant force in Red Creek. Everyone depended on him. Everyone answered to him. Now a struggling single father with 6 rebuilt tractors was attracting attention from investors and buyers. People were beginning to talk, and powerful men rarely enjoy losing attention. Over the next several weeks, strange things started happening. A supplier suddenly canceled an equipment delivery. A transportation company backed out of a signed agreement. A fertilizer order disappeared without explanation. One contract was delayed, then another. then another. At first, Caleb assumed it was coincidence. Victor wasn't convinced, neither was Noah. One evening, Caleb found his son studying paperwork at the kitchen table. "You've been looking at those for an hour." Noah pointed at several canceled contracts.